Welcome to HIV The Morning After. I'm Dan Hall. I'm a documentary producer and director. I've spent my entire adult life watching ignorance and prejudice play out around HIV. And frankly, I'm tired of it. And I'm sure many of you are too. This podcast is an attempt to do something about that. By doing what I do best, interviewing people and letting them tell their own stories. I can make these episodes, but I can't make people listen to them or find them on their algorithms. That bit's down to you. Please rate, review, and share HIV The Morning After. Right then, let's get started. Ismail Harerimana was born in the hills of Kisoro in the far southwest of Uganda. He was often sick as a child and no one told him why. He was 14 when these various sicknesses finally got a name. Then he hid his antiretrovirals in a tin of sugar so that nobody at school would know. Today, he is an unpaid community health worker. Stick around and listen to our conversation to find out why. Ismail, welcome to HIV The Morning After.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really so excited and very happy to be part of this episode. Thank you so much.
And it's wonderful to speak with you again because, of course, we met recently at the Rio AIDS conference.
Yes, well, it was really so amazing that I had to meet so many people and across the world. Of course, what made me happy was, one, they were trying to find solution of how they can end AIDS.
And before we get into you being ill as a child, can you give us an idea of what was it like living there? You know, for people like me living in London, I've got no idea what that upbringing was like. What is, you know, what are the hills like? What is every day like? What does a naughty little boy get up to?
As a child growing in rural Africa, of course, you know, there is digging, of course, cultivating, and of course, going to school, going to fetch water in very, very deep areas. You know, of course, we had no running water, and then we could, you know, travel long distances to look for those, to look for water. That's basically the life I grew up in. Yeah.
And you wanted to join the military, is that right?
Yes. When I was growing up, we used to get a lot of, we were bordering Rwanda and, of course, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So I always loved what military was doing to ensure that the whole community is safe from insurgencies or from insecurities.
And for people who don't know much about Uganda, it's a landlocked country that sits in East Africa, but it has, you know, an incredibly diverse landscape, things like Lake Victoria, amazing mountains, the wildlife is incredible. Before we get into your story in detail, what is it about Uganda that you love the most?
Yes, like you've just mentioned, Uganda is really a very beautiful country and of course, like we said, a landlocked country with amazing tourist attractions. We have forests, rivers, and of course, where I stay, I neighbor Bwindi Imperial National Park that houses so many gorillas. So actually, they are just my neighbor where my home is. I neighbor the forest, and then we have also the best lake in Uganda that is called Lake Bunyonyi, and we have, you know, so many forests, rivers, and of course very good people that loves very many people that, you know, are welcoming. Basically, Uganda is really a part of Africa.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to visit one day. Like, it just, even looking at the photographs, it looks amazing. I hope you'll invite me over for a cup of tea.
Yeah, sure, I will do that. Yeah.
All the way through your childhood, you were often going into hospital, weren't you?
Yeah, of course, I was growing up, of course, getting so many diseases on me, so many. I remember I grew up isolated from the rest of the children because of the very many diseases I used to get. I used to get a lot of rashes. I used to get a lot of, diarrhea. So I had learned to keep by myself, keep indoors all the time, sleeping, not moving out. When I hear people are coming at my home, I'd run and go hide in my house, and ensure that nobody sees me, because a lot of rashes on my body. I had issues with my eyes. I had terrible eye diseases. So basically, I was really looking very, very bad.
And how did that isolation make you feel?
Well, of course, isolation felt, of course, I couldn't, of course, get self-esteem. I couldn't believe in myself. And, of course, a lot of fears. So basically, it wasn't good for me on how the life was when I was growing up as a child.
And to make it super clear to people listening to this, you had no idea what was wrong with you. You just thought that you were a child that kept getting sick.
Yes. And of course, they could, of course, take me to the hospital. They treat the diarrhea. It goes. They will treat the rashes. They keeps coming back as they treat. They keeps coming back. So basically, they were not knowing what exactly I was suffering from, and they would just treat symptoms that I was getting all the time. And then I could fall sick, go back and forth in the hospital. I'm admitted. I'm back. I'm admitted, and I even remember being admitted the same day with my mother. My mother was sleeping the other side, and I was sleeping the other side. All of us down very sick.
So then, not only did you not know what was wrong with you, but
basically, yes.
Everybody else didn't know what was wrong with you either. It didn't occur to them that you might be living with HIV.
Yes. Because by that time, there was no, access to testing, the massive HIV testing. There was, and of course, very few people knew about the disease, and the disease was just coming. People would just hear about it, so they couldn't even ever imagine that I had that very disease. And my mother too never knew that she had the disease as well. So I and my mother were all treating the symptoms of the disease that we all didn't knew, and the health workers as well had not even tried to think it might be the HIV that was really trying to kill us.
So what year was this, Ismail?
I was around, I think 3 years or 4 years, around there.
And how old are you now?
I'm 34 now.
You've been an ill child in hospital. You're young. You're 3, 4 in hospital. Your mum was ill, but the treatment is obviously good enough and you both come out. But then you continue to live a difficult childhood with, physical marks of illness, isolated from other children.
Well, I got a terrible eye infection. My eye swollen from nowhere. So I went to the hospital, Calvary Regional Referral Hospital. It's where I had gone for treatment of my eye infection, and then I think by that time there was a certain campaign to ensure every person that comes in the hospital should be tested for HIV, and that's when I got tested and I was found HIV positive. So and the nurse never told me anything; they just kept quiet, and then she told me to tell the parents to come the following day. So I went back to school with a few medication of the infection that I had on the eye. And then the following day I went back to the hospital with my dad, who they disclosed my HIV status, and he kept quiet of me. And he just told me, take this medicine, keep taking it morning and evening. So by that time I was taking AZT, 3TC, and nevirapine, so I could get taken in the morning and then in the evening. Of course, without knowing exactly the reason why I was swallowing those medicine on a daily basis, and emphasizing that I should not miss at any time during my treatment.
And how old are you?
Yes, I was around 14 there.
So you're around 14, you're being given these mysterious drugs to take, and you're not told why. Did they give you any reason as to why you were taking these mysterious drugs? And drugs that are quite invasive. You're having to, AZT is not the nicest drug. And with these drugs, often you have to not have food or get up at some point. Was any explanation given to you as to why you were taking these medications?
No, there was no explanation. They just said you need to go and take this medication so that you can feel better because you see you were sick. And of course, I'd gone to the hospital when I had a terrible eye infection, which had not healed then. And then when I kept taking, and then I later became better. The eye infection went, and then the other things went, so I was healthy. So I kept asking them a lot of questions. I asked them like, why really am I taking medicine every day when actually I'm not feeling any pain or anywhere. I'm healthy. I think I need to stop this medication. So that's when my mom told me that I had kidney issues and I had to ensure I take my medication to ensure I am safe and I'm okay. So kidney issues were chronic, and then I needed to keep taking my medicine every day to ensure I don't get any problem.
And so it sounds like they were trying to protect you by not telling you the truth.
Exactly, yeah.
When did you find out what the truth was?
Yes, when I found out when actually I was around 16 years, us like children who are living with HIV, we used to have what we call psychosocial support groups called Ariel Clubs.
Just stepping in there quickly to explain to people listening to this who might not know what the Ariel Clubs are. They're a peer support group for children and adolescents living with HIV, and they are run by the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. And as Ismail just said, they are historically PEPFAR and USAID funded.
11 years ago, while giving birth to my first child, I hemorrhaged and was transfused with 7 pints of blood. 4 years later, I found out that I had been infected with the AIDS virus and had unknowingly passed it to my daughter, Ariel, through my breast milk and my son, Jake, in utero. 20 years ago,
And for those older people like me listening to this who might recognize Elizabeth's surname, of course, her husband, Paul Michael Glaser, was a big TV star. He was one half of Starsky and Hutch.
Those were the clubs that shaped me into who I am today, because they were organized in a way that they could bring those old persons who have lived with HIV for a certain period of time and have lived for years, like maybe 5 years, and then would come and speak to us. You look, I'm HIV positive. I have been taking my medicine for this long. And then even other kids also that are older than us that are in school. And I remember by then, we used to pay school fees for some kids. So they would come and speak with us and say, oh, if this person can live up to this time, I think maybe I also have hope that I can live up to this time. So in those area clubs, children, adolescents living with HIV would come at the hospital every Saturday to meet, be taught a lot of things about sexuality, about HIV, about a lot of health topics to ensure we are safe. And then then we could reach a time in the evening when we're going back, we go and pick our medicine and go. So I went to the counter with one of the child who really understood why he was taking medicine. So we kept medicine, we picked medicine, all of us were on AZT, 3T, nevirapine. Then I was curious to I was really excited to see he was taking the same medicine I was taking, exactly the same. I had to read every word on the tin, every word was corresponding with his. So I said, do you think, are you also having kidney issues? Because I see we take the same medicine. Then the boy, there was like, no, look, for mom, I have AIDS. Then I was shocked. That was like, we are here, we are being taught about AIDS. The kid is picking the same medicine that I am taking is also for AIDS. It was a shock to me. My life never became the same from then. And remember here, HIV is always looked at as something that is good from unprotected sex. And that's the information that they used to tell us at school, and even the information that we knew. And then and of course, biblically, and of course, we are really of religious background. And of course, having sex before you get married is a sin in Africa, for example. And for me, I had never played sex in my entire life. And then I was trying to think, where did I get rid of this HIV, right? And then, of course, I didn't know that there's mother to child transmission. I had no that information. The only thing we knew was it's through sex. Where did I get this killer disease? So I went back to school. From then, even reading stopped. I could go to prep, look in my book, but in actual sense, I'm not reading. I'm just thinking, when will I die? What will I tell God? What sins had I committed? And then I would start asking for forgiveness. And actually, I remember every end of the school term, I would do a farewell to my friends. I used to tell them, I've gone home. I'm not sure whether I'll come back.
But it must be difficult taking your medicine as you're supposed to if you're trying to hide it as well. It must be exhausting, becoming a kind of tower of secrets.
So every month, I would always try to find a way to lie to teachers to give them permission to go and pick my medicine. So I would lie. Then I remember there's one time they refused to give me permission, and I was supposed to go and pick my medicines, and I had no any drug. So I escaped. So when I came back, they asked me, where had you gone? Of course, I had no answer. I would not tell them that I had gone to the hospital. They would ask me, you are not sick, please give us any document to show that you are at school. So I refused. So I was given 100 canes.
The school system and the education system were not in communication. You had to go to hospital for meds to help treat your HIV, but the school wouldn't let you out. You escaped school to go and get your meds, and then when you got back to school, you were caned 100 times, right?
Yes. What I did was to remain in school, and then I stopped the medicine. I got terrible sickness. Whole of my body was full of rashes all over the body. My eyes became red, and students started fearing me. When I go to the desk to sit, they just go far from me. So I became a terrible student in a school where teachers decided I should go away and look for another school.
So you were thrown out of school in the end?
Yes, because I was looking terribly bad, and every student was fearing me because of how I was looking, with a lot of sicknesses and a lot of rashes all over my body. I was looking very, very bad. Back home, I told them I want to change the school, but you should put me in a school that is near home. Anytime I want to go home, you come and ask permission, I go home. So in that school where I went, I was looking a bit nice, and then I had again regained some, things had gone away. So I said, and I was a friend to secretary of the school, because for me, I like children. So he had a small kid I would always care for her. So I was really so close to her that when I told her, maybe she would understand. So I told her that actually I'm living with HIV. It was another hassle. She said, what? Is it true? So from then, she started hiding her kid from me. And then she went and told matron. Matron is a person that takes care of girls in a boarding school. that Isma is HIV positive. So, and the information I thought would remain between the secretary, it was taken to matron, matron to teachers, teachers to students, and the whole school knew about me then. So I had to leave the school also.
Because you are a teenager, I'm guessing, at this point, and you're now leaving your second school. This is the second school that you have been thrown out of because of your HIV status.
Yes, of course, I was feeling, worthless, hopeless. I was not looking at myself as a person who is going to live another year, or just always counting myself. I have finished this year. Will I finish the next coming year? Will I do this? Actually, I remember I've even asked myself, why am I even studying? Why can't I remain home and leave school forever? I also thought about that, all those things. Then I remember there is like a school year I left. I said, no, I'm not going back to school. I just remain home because after all, I'm going to die. And then I will remember when I had finished high school, I was really confident enough. I had to go public. I shared my story in one of the leading newspapers in Uganda called Daily Monitor. So my story was among the best stories that inspired so many young people that were in hiding those years.
But what made you decide to do that? Because that is a huge thing to do.
I wanted those young people who are still in high school, who are still suffering this way I was suffering, who was hiding the way I was hiding. If I shared my story, what I passed through school, maybe teachers who read those stories would maybe change on how they look at us, or maybe they would change on how they support us, or maybe they will find a way on how they can give us support that we needed. So basically, I shared my story on how my story in school to make the public understand why exactly they needed to support those kids who are still in school, who may be suffering the same way I was suffering.
So then you've come through childhood, during which a lot of it you felt alone. You find the Ariel groups, support groups, which are hugely helpful to you, the Ariel Clubs. Then by some amazing strength of personality, when you then leave education, you cross to the other side of the table and become an inspiration to people coming to those groups. But then it's not just the children in those rooms that you love and look after. You become a father yourself.
Well, of course, like any other kid, any other young person growing up, of course, there is this kind of relationship engaging. And of course, it was something that I have never dreamed to have, that maybe I would get a partner, or maybe I would start a relationship, because one, I feared to transmit. That was number one. And of course, growing up, it was really very hard for me to find a relationship because of the experiences that I got when I had my first girlfriend, and then the matron disclosed to that girl that I was HIV positive, and then the girl checked me, and then I feared that anyone would check me, and then I had to keep, secret, and of course not trying to start a relationship because I know maybe they would come to know, and maybe they check me, and then they break my heart. So I was to hide that for a long time, and then I remember I was on Facebook actually, and then there was a lady that read my story, and she was really touched of how my story was, and then she was like, "No, for me, I want to just be your friend." I said, "Why? How?" So we started, chatting, and then we later met, and then and we took actually long to decide to meet, because it's good that one, she knew about my HIV status, and then I had to, accept at a later time, and then that's when we connected, because for her she's actually HIV negative. But along the way, I kept understanding a lot of information around how, when you adhere well to your medication, you actually reduce the chances of transmitting to your partner. And then I tried also to explain to her that yes, if I adhere well to my medication, basically chances of transmitting to you are very minimal. So we would, of course, try to ensure I protect you from getting HIV. So we used to be together, and then every 3 months she'd go and test. She's negative, like that. Then she said, "Oh no, let's just be together." And then that's how we became wife and husband, just like that. And then we have a kid, a 2-year-old. So we knew each other, but we took long to get married, because we were trying to understand how one can keep the other one safe.
And how incredible that you went from being a boy who, at the end of each school term, said goodbye to his school friends in case he didn't come back, to holding a brand new life in your arms. I mean, that's an incredible journey.
Yeah, basically that's really an amazing journey, and of course very inspiring and encouraging. I really like who I am now, because of, it was really not an easy journey growing up, for those many challenges and those many problems I got when growing up. But of course, reaching at this time, I really thank God. Yeah.
And the inspiring work that you were doing at the Ariel Clubs then went on to become actual paid work, didn't it? How did that happen?
So I was among the people that were selected by the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation as the area ambassadors. So my role was to move around southwestern part of the country to go and share my own experiences with parents, children themselves, adolescents, and health workers of how I was living with HIV and all the challenges I faced and how I've overcome the challenges. And so I moved in very many districts in the southwestern part of Uganda, supported by the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation through PEPFAR support. So my work was to ensure those kids that are suffering the same way I used to suffer at least learn from me, and they get confident like I have, to ensure that they also accept their HIV status and live a positive life. So basically that's how I started this work, and then I continued, and then through the EGPAF support, I was attached to Kabale Regional Referral Hospital as a peer educator.
And so what was the OVC program?
Yeah, so basically OVC was also a program under USAID, and it was looking at vulnerable children who can't afford food and they are HIV positive, and other vulnerable children, even if they are not HIV positive. And then they were providing food support, and then those who could be coming from very far and they cannot access health facility, they would give transport to reach a health facility.
So was food in such scarcity in some situations that the providing of food was vital?
Yes.
And the same thing for the transport, that transport was not always accessible for these kids. And so if there wasn't transport, then they wouldn't be able to get the services they required. And so the provision of transport is a key thing, because there's no point in having all the medication in the world if people can't reach it. And these vital services were mostly funded by PEPFAR and USAID.
Yeah.
So then you were doing this work. You created a life for yourself, gorgeous family life, a professional life. You're doing wonderful works around the country, making sure that life is easier for children than it was for you. But then last January 2025, a decision was made in Washington to cut USAID funds. What is the effects that those cuts have had on you?
Oh, well, well, it is something that I had never imagined it would happen, because entirely in Uganda, the 80% of our health, our HIV services were supported by USAID, and overnight it is no more. And just imagine 80% of HIV services being supported by outside, by foreign aid, and then it stopped. I personally was also being supported like a small stipend of about $50. So when the stop work came through, we thought maybe it is something that we want to take maybe a few days, then maybe it is reinstated, maybe a few months. I don't know how it was going to happen, but I never thought it would take all this long.
Sorry, just stepping in there, was your work being terminated because something else was doing it better or more efficiently, or was it when you stopped working, the services that you provided would just stop as well?
Oh, everything stopped. When they gave us termination letters, we had to go home, all of us. And remember, with HIV clinic, how it was, it was supported by USAID money, and then every staff that was in there was paid by USAID. And when termination came through, it was affecting each and every staff that was in the clinic. The counselors, the doctors, nurses, lab technicians, cleaners, everyone had gone. People died, very many. When USAID cut came, the clinic closed, so people had to go to the hospital instead. But the staff there were not trained in HIV, so they didn't know what to do. And sometimes a doctor is asking, which medicine can I give you? Do you have a bottle I look at? Then I give the medicine. So patients were like, who is this person giving us medicine that don't throw anything? And they're going to kill us with the wrong medicine? Those who could fear so much, they could refuse taking medicine. And the worst part of it is we have a file that has medical records of people. And remember, every person that was working in electronic files and then in physical files, all of them had gone. So doctors would just give medicine just out of blue. And then people died.
Just stepping in there. So doctors, because they didn't have access to either physical or electronic files, would have to just sort of guess what meds were needed, and they weren't able to cross-check whether those meds were safe to prescribe.
Exactly.
And all this is because of the slash in funding.
Exactly.
What is your response then to, say, Marco Rubio, who told Congress that no children were dying on my watch, or Elon Musk, who has very recently said that 0 people in Africa have died because of his cuts, and that it's impossible to name even one person who has died because of the cuts he brought in? What are your thoughts on that?
I have a kid who died in my hands. This is a girl that was under my caseload, and then that we used to go and visit at her home, basically trying to do a home visit follow up. And just because she was living with a grandmother who didn't understand how to administer medicine, etc., and then we used to give her that support. That's when that kid was brought in a very critical condition with TB, HIV, with all the infections. And this is a kid that I knew how to, actually, I think I don't know. Anyway, I remember recording her when we were in the office trying to joke around. How do you want to become? Who do you want to be in the future? And why? And so she could share all those stories. Yeah, I want to be a nurse when I grow up, help my grandmother. So, and I think I still have that video of us talking, and that's the only thing I can, remember with her. And that's the worst part of this whole thing of a kid dying, missing, admitted, and dying out of or this kind of cut. So when they say nobody died, then even reporting systems, all of them were, distracted, removed. So how would they even know the numbers of people that died? Basically, where do they get the numbers?
So then if Marco Rubio is listening to this podcast, his statement, "No children are dying on my watch," is not true. And if Elon Musk is listening to this podcast, his statement that 0 people in Africa died because of the cuts, that no one can name a single person who did die, that is also not true.
It's definitely not true. 100% not true.
So then, Ismail, as we're coming towards the end of our conversation, this is where I like to create a moment of remembrance in the episode, an audio version of the AIDS quilt. And I would like to ask you, who would you like me and the listeners to spend a few minutes remembering with you?
I would, of course, remember this girl that would have saved if there was a way to save her life and maybe achieve her dream of becoming a nurse to also help others. Yeah.
And finally, Ismail, if you could write a postcard that the whole world would read, what would you write on it?
That HIV and AIDS is a continuous kind of intervention that shouldn't stop at any time. That we need every stakeholder, every country, every person who cares to at least have something they can do to ensure we end HIV. Of course, it remains a very threatening disease if not handled well, because HIV remains in our bodies and it needs to be controlled within our bodies. And of course, it requires a lot of intervention to ensure that it doesn't, kill us.
And let us remember that it is not only the United States that cut their funding. Whilst the storm was happening with the USAID's cuts, certainly my own country took a chance to cut down the amount that they were giving, and I'm sure many others did as well. So I think one of the ways that people listening can help is to write to your members of parliament, write to your political leaders and say that this is not acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, and any person who listen could also try to do whatever they can within their means. Of course, like engaging their Congress people to, like those in the US, and then the UK also to get their member of parliament to see how best they can maybe help. Of course, HIV, it remains a global problem, because if I have HIV, and in one way or another, it can also reach those other countries if not controlled.
And to people listening, if they would like to financially support Ismail in his endeavors, there will be a link in the show notes. Ismail Harerimana, thank you so much for coming on HIV the morning after, and for climbing the hills on a borrowed bike, for still doing all the work that you do unpaid. And I really hope that this difficult period unlocks for you soon, and that you start to get paid again for the brilliant work you do. And thank you so much for giving up your time to come onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you for the time you have given me. Thank you so much.
If you were moved or informed by what you heard today, please help spread the word. Subscribe to HIV The Morning After and leave a rating and a review. It makes a huge difference in helping others to find it. Your support helps to amplify these experiences. If you'd like to get in touch, you can email me at hivthemorningafter@gmail.com. And remember, if you encounter HIV stigma in a bar, call it out. If you encounter it at work, call it out. If you encounter it online, call it out. Because if you don't, you're part of the problem. The theme tune is by Pauline Nidu at unstoppablemonsters.com. And many thanks to Murray Lang for his continued support. And thank you for listening. Join me next time for another important conversation on HIV The Morning After. I've been Dan Hall.